After graduating high school, I got engaged to a close family friend I'd always called my uncle. But to him, I was just a kid. When we got back to our new apartment that night, my hands trembled as I reached for his tie. He gently pushed my hand away, a lazy smile playing on his lips. "You really think I'm enough of a monster to sleep with my own little niece?" The next day, he flew abroad, claiming it was for work. 2 years later, we ran into each other at a karaoke bar. At that exact moment, an upperclassman was in the middle of a very public confession of love to me. And there Ethan was, leaning against the wall with a drink, casually watching the drama unfold. That night, as I sat anxiously in the back of his Maybach, he tilted my chin up to study my face. "I raised you myself," he murmured. "How could you dare run off with someone else?" I had only stepped out of the private room for a breath of fresh air. I didn't expect to run into Ethan, the uncle I had barely seen for the past 2 years. I especially didn't expect to be cornered by my upperclassman, Brad, for a love confession. I shook my head, at a loss. "I'm sorry, Brad." "Chloe, is it because I'm 4 years older than you?" He interrupted, as if he'd prepared for this. "Older guys are great at taking care of their partners, you know? Like me." Ethan held his drink, leaning languidly against the wall. He looked like he was just enjoying the show from the sidelines. Brad must have been planning this confession for a long time. The moment he finished speaking, everyone from our room flooded out, surrounding us. "Say yes. Say yes. Come on, Chloe, Brad is so handsome, and he's rich. You can't go wrong saying yes." I waited for the cheers to die down, then pursed my lips and finished my sentence. "I'm sorry, I already have a boyfriend." Across the hall, Ethan's eyes lifted slightly. Brad's brow furrowed, his patience wearing thin. "You've been saying you have a boyfriend since freshman year, but how come we've never seen him?" "I'll believe you if you call him over right now." "Yeah, Chloe, you always use that excuse to turn people down." "It's getting old." I was getting a little annoyed myself and argued back sullenly. "We're getting married this year. Why would I lie to you?" I'd realized it as soon as I saw Ethan. I was about to turn 20. He was back to marry me. And, if nothing changed, he'd probably leave again right after we signed the papers. Brad, rejected repeatedly, was now furious. "Married?" He scoffed. "Chloe, are you playing me for a fool? Have I been too nice to you?" He pointed a finger at me, his face dark as he prepared to yell again. But his finger was caught by a larger hand, which then bent it back without mercy. The guy's shrill scream echoed down the entire hallway. It was Ethan's bodyguard who had stepped in. He kicked the back of Brad's knee. The guy couldn't support himself and dropped to his knees right in front of me. The karaoke bar manager rushed over when he heard the commotion, pretending not to see us. He scurried to Ethan's side, bowing slightly. "Mr. Wen," he said, his voice strained, What's going on here? Did this kid upset you?" Ethan didn't answer. As he lifted his glass, the manager alertly took it with both hands. Ethan looked over at me, raising one eyebrow in a slight, smiling arch. "Not coming over here?" The crowd that had been cheering just moments ago was now dead silent. They even parted to make a path for me. I obediently walked to Ethan's side, catching the faint scent of alcohol on him. A girl bravely called out to me, her voice careful. "Is that your boyfriend?" Ethan had always treated me like a child. He definitely wouldn't like me making that claim on my own. I shook my head and introduced him. "This is my uncle." Ethan's expression didn't change. He just idly rubbed the engagement ring I had put on his left ring finger. The manager couldn't read Ethan's mood and was sweating bullets. "Mr. Wen, have you calmed down? Or should I teach this punk another lesson for you?" Ethan raised a hand to stop him. "Not worth it." He then had someone from his room bring out his suit jacket. Holding it in his hand, he asked me, "Want to hang out a bit longer, or are you ready to go home with me?" The curiosity in the eyes of the people behind me was practically overflowing. I had no desire to stay and be interrogated. I moved a little closer to him, subconsciously seeking a sense of security. I want to go home, Uncle. The driver's instinctive move to raise the back seat divider left me feeling a bit awkward. The car was so quiet I could even hear the steady hum of the tires on the highway. Beside me, Ethan had his eyes closed, rubbing his temples. I curled my hands, which were resting on my knees, and mustered the courage to speak. Uncle, is your head hurting? I asked. I can give you a massage. It had been almost half a year since we'd last seen each other. My relationship with Ethan had reverted to a polite distance. The man's low, magnetic voice held a hint of a smile, impossibly charming. Oh. Well, thank you. I had just gotten off the plane when I was tricked into coming to this welcome party. I didn't even have a chance to tell you I was back. It took me a second to realize he was explaining himself to me. That's okay. I knelt on the seat and sat up straight, placing my hands on his temples and massaging them earnestly. Only because his eyes were closed did I dare to so brazenly trace his features with my gaze. He was truly handsome. His features weren't overly delicate or sharp. He was more handsome than anyone I had ever seen. The blare of a car horn shattered the peace. The driver slammed on the brakes. Inertia sent me tumbling sideways. Ah. Just as I thought I was going to fall, a pair of hands caught me by the waist. Ethan pulled me right onto his lap, sitting sideways. I instinctively threw my arms around his neck. Our eyes met. His ink-black pupils clearly reflected my dazed expression. This close, I could smell the stronger scent of alcohol on his collar. I snapped back to reality and tried to get off his lap, but Ethan held my waist, keeping me pinned. He stared at me and suddenly spoke. Are you dating someone? I looked at him, confused, not understanding why he would ask that. What? Ethan's gaze swept over my face. He suddenly reached up and tilted my chin. My breath hitched, and I was too nervous to look at him. Ethan was drunk, and the sense of pressure he usually kept in check was now undeniable. You've grown up, and you've gotten bold. Uncle, I clutched the shirt on his shoulder and called his name, my voice trembling. The man's whisper grew fainter, yet it seemed to hold some unspeakable obsession. I raised you. Shouldn't you belong to me? He curled his lip into a slight smile. How could you dare run off with someone else? I wasn't sure what Ethan meant by that, and I didn't dare to think about it too much. After all, in the past 2 years, we had spent maybe less than 3 months together. He had even rejected me before. He certainly didn't like me in that way. But right now, he was drunk and would only hear what he wanted to hear, refusing to let me go. I had to set aside my confusion for the moment. I awkwardly raised my hands and wrapped them around his shoulders. Fighting the heat rising in my ears, I whispered, I'm yours, I won't run. As a reward, Ethan placed a light kiss on my hair. Good girl. I called the housekeeper ahead of time and asked her to prepare the guest room for Ethan. But when he got home, he walked right past it and followed me into the master bedroom as if he hadn't noticed. His intention was clear. Honestly, this was bound to happen sooner or later. After all, in half a month, on my 20th birthday, Ethan and I were supposed to get our marriage license. As I reached for his tie, my heart was pounding so loudly I wondered if he could hear it too. Lost in the fog of the unknown, I couldn't tell how much of what I felt was anticipation. Ethan looked down at me, his gaze calm. A few seconds later, just like 2 years ago, he gently pushed my hand away. You're still scared. I pressed my lips together. I'm sorry, Uncle. But it was different from 2 years ago. This was less about fear and more about nerves. Ethan circled my wrist with his hand and lifted it. He tilted his head slightly, his lips brushing against the inside of my wrist. No need to apologize. That night, I slept curled up in Ethan's arms. But I was still subconsciously tense. In the dead of night, Ethan's hand gently stroked the back of my head. Do you want to marry me? I nodded slightly, answering obediently. I do. As if to prove my words, I snuggled closer into his embrace. I think I must like Ethan a little bit. Ethan and I had a childhood engagement, arranged by our families. He was 9 years older than me and never took the ridiculous agreement seriously. He had me call him uncle. When I was little, during the years my father was abroad expanding his business, he was the one who took care of me. But in my senior year of high school, my father's company faced bankruptcy. The stress aged him overnight. He came to me, his voice heavy. "Chloe, can you marry Ethan as soon as you graduate? You don't have to get the license right away, just have the wedding. Dad's company needs the one family's financial support." I was strongly against it. I didn't want a loveless marriage. Besides, back then, I only saw Ethan as my uncle. But my father collapsed from overwork and ended up in the hospital. Sitting by his bedside, I finally gave in. However, when my father went to discuss it with Ethan, he refused without a second thought. The next day, my father knelt before me the moment I got home from school. He wept uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, Chloe. After you graduate, please go to your Uncle Lee. Ethan doesn't want you, and I have nowhere else to turn. Only your Uncle Lee is willing to help me." This Mr. Lee was 7 years older than my own father, with a large belly and not much hair. Most importantly, he was married. My father was shaking so hard that blood started to seep through the bandage on his wrist. After Ethan's refusal, he hadn't been able to handle the pressure from creditors and had tried to kill himself by slitting his wrists. He didn't succeed. So now, he was trying to push me to my death instead. I ran through the rain to Ethan's house. When he opened the door and saw me, soaked to the bone in my school uniform, his brow furrowed. He pulled me inside. "What happened?" Tears mixed with the rain, dripping onto the floor. I clutched his sleeve helplessly, begging him. "Uncle, will you marry me, please?" I didn't want to die, but I couldn't just stand by and watch my father die either. My only option was to ask Ethan for help. I knew I shouldn't be dragging him into this. So the moment he agreed, I was prepared to spend the rest of my life repaying him. The night of our engagement party, we went back to the new apartment he had bought. Ethan had been toasted round after round and was a bit unsteady on his feet. I had spent the whole day mentally preparing myself. But when I reached for his tie, I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. Ethan was leaning back on the sofa and dodged my hand. He propped his head up with one hand, looking at me with amusement. "What do you think you're doing?" I squeezed my sweaty palms, closed my eyes, and leaned in to kiss him. Ethan tilted his head back, avoiding it again. He let out a soft laugh, as if watching a child throw a tantrum. "You don't have to do this. Or do you think I'm enough of a monster to sleep with the little niece I raised?" He pushed himself up from the armrest and started towards the guest room. I grabbed his hand, forcing myself to look up at him despite my panic. "It's okay. We're going to get married sooner or later, after all." Ethan frowned and scoffed lightly. He flicked my forehead, a little harder than necessary. "What are you acting up for, little girl? Just settle down." The dream ended the moment Ethan closed the guest room door. I woke up, my eyes groggy. My brain was slow to start working. I thought to myself, even without all this, I probably would have fallen for Ethan eventually. After all, my ideal type in high school was pretty much exactly like him. The other side of the bed was cold. Ethan must have been up for a long time. I glanced at the date on my phone and suddenly remembered my plans for the day. After getting ready, I went to the study to find Ethan. "Uncle, I'm going to a birthday party for my roommate today. We're going to a bar tonight, so I might be back late." He wore a pair of rimless glasses when he worked. They didn't make him look serious or restrained. Instead, they gave him the air of a deceptively charming villain. Ethan leaned back in his swivel chair, glancing at me nonchalantly. "What if someone publicly confesses their love to you again tonight?" His stare made my cheeks flush. I mumbled, "I'll just tell them I'm getting married soon." With that, I shut the door and fled back to my room. My roommate originally said it would just be the four of us from our dorm. But when we got to the bar, there were already 4 guys sitting in our booth. She had used her birthday as an excuse to set up a mixer. I stared at her, my face blank. She pressed her palms together, explaining pitifully, I couldn't get enough people for the mixer, they wouldn't have come otherwise. Please, Chloe, just sit with me for a little while. I know you have a boyfriend, I'll do my best to keep any of the guys from talking to you, please, please, please. And to her credit, she did a great job. She managed to chat with 2 guys at once without any trouble. I curled up in the corner of the sofa, playing on my phone, happy to be left alone. Just then, a text came in from Ethan. What time does it end? Should I come pick you up? I hesitated for a second but decided not to hide it from him. I kind of want to leave now, Uncle. My roommate tricked me into coming to a mixer. Then I quickly added, but I haven't talked to any of the guys. Just as I sent it, the sofa cushion next to me dipped. It was one of the 2 guys who had been talking to my roommate. It's no fun to be at a bar and not drink. Try this. He held out a glass of some unknown liquid. I picked up the glass of juice that had been sitting in front of me and took a sip. I refused politely but distantly. Sorry, my boyfriend doesn't let me drink. I'm fine with this. His eyes followed the juice in my hand. When he saw me swallow, he raised an eyebrow. Ah, the legendary boyfriend again? He smiled. It's the talk of our whole department. The belle of the department has a boyfriend who never shows his face, never comes to school to see her, but she's so head over heels that she's turned down countless guys for him. I gave a half-hearted smile and didn't reply. He didn't try to start another conversation, just sat beside me, slowly sipping his drink. Ethan didn't text back. He was probably angry. I suddenly felt a wave of irritation. I wasn't sure if it was because the guy next to me wouldn't take a hint, or because of Ethan's cold shoulder. A fire started to burn in my chest, growing hotter and hotter. I felt so agitated I needed to get some fresh air. The guy seemed to expect this. He tilted his head and smiled. You look like you could use a break. My consciousness was fading. I couldn't quite hear what he was saying, I just desperately wanted to extinguish the heat raging inside me. He put his arm around my shoulder and announced to the others, I'm gonna take her outside for some air. She seems pretty drunk. My roommate waved a hand. Okay, make sure you take good care of her. As the guy half dragged, half carried me up from the booth, he was suddenly kicked square in the chest. I lost my support and stumbled forward, only to be caught in a familiar embrace that now felt chillingly cold. The restlessness inside me temporarily subsided. Boss, her juice was drugged. How should we handle this? I was swept up into a bridal carry. From above me came a slow, deliberate verdict. Break his right hand and dump him in front of the police station. I buried my face in the man's neck as the pleas for mercy faded behind us. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'll never do it again. Stay away from me. The cold air conditioning in the car brought back a sliver of my consciousness. I realized I was sitting sideways on Ethan's lap. Uncle, I feel so sick, I clung to him, on the verge of tears. He patted my back, his touch deeply comforting. I'm taking you to the hospital now. Just hold on a little longer. The cool skin of his neck, with its faint scent of sandalwood, was a silent temptation. As if I had skin hunger, I instinctively latched onto that spot. Ethan's body went rigid. No hospital. I carefully kissed his neck again, whispering things that would normally make me blush just to think about. I want you, Uncle. The hand Ethan had on my back unknowingly started to heat up. He looked up, catching the driver's eye in the rearview mirror. The driver immediately understood and raised the privacy divider. Ethan held me a little further away from him. He seemed both angry and helpless, smiling as he flicked my forehead. What are you doing, trying to tempt me right now? Are you forcing me to take advantage of you? He pressed my hips firmly against him, making me acutely aware that he was not unmoved. Chloe, if I'm going to do this, it has to be because you truly want it. Perhaps it was the drugs, but I couldn't control my emotions. The smallest bit of hurt felt magnified 100 times. Tears welled up in my eyes. I held onto his neck and met his gaze, tears streaming down my cheeks. What do I have to do to make you believe that I like you? Ethan stared at me without blinking, his dark eyes hiding a bottomless river of emotion. In reality, his composure was slowly crumbling. I bravely touched his thin lips with mine, then pulled back. Unlike my shyness, Ethan kept his eyes lowered, watching my every move like a detached observer. But when I took his hand, the burning heat of his fingertips was undeniable. I placed his hand on my chest, as if sharing a wonderful secret with him. Uncle, I'm all grown up now. I wasn't talking about my age. After a long moment, Ethan finally spoke. But his words were for the driver. His voice was hoarse with barely controlled desire. Turn around. We're going home. This was the third time I had taken the initiative. Ethan didn't reject me again. The second time was last year. After Ethan flew abroad, his mother came to see me once. She gently suggested that I should visit him in Houston more often when I had the time, to cultivate our relationship. I nodded eagerly in agreement. Overwhelmed with guilt, I couldn't refuse any request from the Wen family. Over the next 2 years, I flew to see Ethan quite a few times. He would occasionally come back, for my birthday, for instance. Being with him always felt subtly awkward, like I didn't know how to act. That time, I went without telling him beforehand. When I landed at the airport, he sent his assistant to pick me up. Miss Smith, the boss is still at a business dinner and can't get away just yet. I'll take you back to the villa first. I nodded quietly. My phone screen was still on the latest news alert. Top starlet spotted on a late-night date with her millionaire boyfriend in another country. Is a high society wedding on the horizon? The post was accompanied by several photos of the couple kissing outside a club, with the man's face blurred out. But his build and style of dress were almost identical to Ethan's. Most importantly, in the corner of the last picture, the license plate of a car wasn't blurred. It was Ethan's car. I rested my chin on my hand, staring blankly out the window. A light sense of disappointment settled in my heart. But what right did I have to question him? I was the one who owed him, after all. The housekeeper had already left for the day, leaving me alone in the huge villa. I opened my suitcase to unpack, already resigned to the fact that Ethan wouldn't be coming home tonight. Around midnight, the power in the villa suddenly went out. The only light came from a single street lamp outside the window. The silence was tinged with an eerie quality. I hugged my knees and sat in the corner of the sofa, calling Ethan's assistant for help. The power's out at the villa. Is there a backup generator? The generator broke 2 days ago and hasn't been fixed yet. Her voice softened, trying to reassure me. Don't worry, I'm bringing someone over to check the wiring now. Just before my phone died, I heard a rustling at the front door. Without even putting on shoes, I ran barefoot to the door, heart pounding, and turned on the video intercom screen. The next second, the door swung open. It was Ethan. I stared at him, dumbfounded. Uncle? Along with the surprise, the anxiety that had been building inside me suddenly vanished. He hadn't even taken off his overcoat before he swept me up into his arms. He let out a slow, mocking laugh. It hasn't been that long, and you've already forgotten everything I've told you. How many times have I said, no walking around barefoot? His tone was more indulgent than scolding. Ethan placed me on the sofa. He knelt in front of me, cupping my feet in his hands as if to warm them. Why didn't you call me when the power went out? I propped myself up with my hands, unconsciously picking at the edge of the sofa. I turned my head away from him. I didn't want to bother you and your girlfriend. What? Ethan paused for a second, then a low chuckle escaped from his throat. He tapped his finger on the coffee table beside him. He watched me with amusement. Isn't my girlfriend you? Of course not. I was just the little burden tying him down with a marriage contract. I only dared to think such a dramatic thought to myself. I opened the news article and silently handed him my phone. He glanced at it and explained, "That's Kane and his girlfriend. We were in the same private room tonight talking about a deal." Kane was the second son of the Hahn family and currently worked as a VP under Ethan. So that's what it was. Ethan held my foot, his grip not too tight, not too loose. He asked, amused, "You don't believe me?" I blinked, still looking away from him. "I do." I suppressed the smile that was bubbling up from pure joy and pulled my foot back from his hands. I slipped on my slippers and bolted back to my room. "I'm going to sleep now." I wrapped myself messily in the blankets and let myself do a happy little roll. The assistant quickly brought people over to fix the wiring, and the power came back on. The faint sound of the shower from the other bathroom stopped at some point. My hands involuntarily tightened on the blanket. After a long moment, as if I'd made up my mind, I threw off the covers. I walked to Ethan's room and knocked. He opened the door partway. His short black hair was half dry and fell across his forehead. The top button of his black silk pajamas was undone, revealing one side of his collarbone. He looked like a rakish, devil-may-care playboy. "What's wrong?" he asked with a smile. "Decided to do a spot check before bed?" I choked on my words and looked up at him accusatorially. "Uncle, I already know it was a misunderstanding. Can you please not bring it up again?" I was trying to stop calling him that, but if I didn't consciously remind myself, Uncle would just slip out. Luckily, Ethan didn't seem to care what I called him. He just asked, "So, what did you need?" I lowered my head, not daring to look at him. I felt like a freshly steamed dumpling, with little waves of steam rising from the top of my head. I swallowed hard and stammered, I want to sleep with you." After what felt like a long time, Ethan opened the door wider and stepped aside to let me in. I kept my head down and scurried to the bed, diving under the covers. I was immediately enveloped in Ethan's familiar scent, slightly bitter yet crisp and clean. Ethan placed a bottle of water on the nightstand before turning off the light and lying down on the other side. The man's breathing soon became deep and even, as if he were fast asleep. I tentatively moved closer to him. No reaction. I slowly scooted into his arms. Ethan still didn't move. After another full minute of mental preparation, I raised my sweaty palm to unbutton his pajamas. My hand was suddenly seized. Ethan didn't open his eyes, his voice a lazy drawl. "Looking for trouble? Can't even sleep peacefully." I felt like I had used up a lifetime's worth of courage in that moment. I bit my lip and continued trying to unbutton his shirt. Ethan's patience ran out. He flipped over, pinning me underneath him, completely trapping me. Our noses were touching. He asked, his voice hoarse, "What are you doing?" My hands were pressed against my chest, unable to move. I gazed at him, puzzled, and whispered, "You don't have another girlfriend. So why won't you?" The man's Adam's apple bobbed. After a moment, he said softly, "You're still young." "I'm already 19. I looked at him, my gaze intense. "Ethan, stop treating me like a kid." It was the first time I had ever called him by his name. He still didn't let me go. My eyes started to sting. I couldn't tell if it was from anger or shame. Ethan lowered his head and placed a light kiss on my eyelid. Crying at the drop of a hat. "You're not a kid." He negotiated with me, a half smile on his face. "Can you wait a little longer? I've been working for 30 hours straight. I really can't tonight." I swallowed my tears, a pang of sympathy hitting me. "I'm sorry. You should get some sleep then." Fearing I wouldn't stay put, Ethan held my hands and pulled me into his arms, where we slept for the rest of the night. After we got married, we talked about this one day. Ethan casually told me the truth. Saying I was too young was just an excuse. He could tell I didn't really love him back then, that it was more about a sense of duty and paying him back, so he didn't want to force it. "Turn around. We're not going to the hospital." Ethan said to the driver, "Go back to the Harborview." The new apartment Ethan had bought was in the Harborview Residences, the same place I had lived for the past 2 years. But the drug was gradually overwhelming my reason, and my self-control was wearing thin. My whole body was screaming its desire for Ethan. He held me tight, whispering reassurances that we were almost there. Even though the driver was going as fast as he could, I couldn't help but start kissing Ethan's lips in the elevator. Ethan's self-control seemed to be at its limit too. The moment we were inside, he pushed me against the entryway cabinet and crushed his mouth to mine, prying my lips open. Both of our breathing was ragged. Ethan didn't let me go until my lips felt slightly numb. Kissing seemed to temporarily ease the effects of the drug. At least, by the time Ethan carried me into the bedroom, I was a little more clear-headed. I lay obediently in his arms, quiet and still. Ethan looked down at me, his smile laced with affection. "Not scared anymore?" His words sparked a flicker of panic in me. "A little." I asked for help. "Will it hurt a lot, Uncle? I'm scared of pain." He didn't answer, only told me to let him know if it became uncomfortable. Perhaps it was the drug, but it wasn't as uncomfortable as I had imagined. Later on, when Ethan intentionally slowed things down, I could even use my remaining rationality to think. He looked down at me and suddenly chuckled. "Why are you looking at me like that? What do you want to say?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again. After a moment's hesitation, I couldn't help but ask softly, "Have you ever, before?" I pressed my lips together, trying to find the right words. Ethan already understood what I meant. "Never." My hand, resting on his arm, tightened involuntarily. Why? After all, he was about to turn 29. At times like this, men seem to automatically activate a people-pleasing mode. He leaned in to kiss me and gave his answer right before our lips met. "I was waiting for you to grow up." Ethan planned to shift his focus back to the domestic company, so he was often at the office all day. The next morning, I woke up in a daze, my eyes still too heavy with sleep to open. Ethan was already dressed. He sat on the edge of the bed, fastening his cufflinks. "You're awake this early?" I yawned and sat up, leaning bonelessly against his shoulder. "Uncle, are you going to the office? Can I come with you?" Ethan's lips brushed against my ear, his whisper as gentle as a lover's. "What's wrong?" I wrapped my arms around his waist and snuggled into his chest. My voice was stickier than melted marshmallows. "I don't want to be apart from you." The man hugged me a little tighter, chuckling softly. "Why are you so clingy, baby?" I didn't think I was being that clingy. I just went to the kitchen while brushing my teeth to nuzzle against him while he made breakfast. And on the way to the office, I leaned on his shoulder and compared the size of our hands. That's all. Not long after Ethan brought me into his office, he had to leave for a meeting that would last at least 3 hours. I swung his hand back and forth, letting out a disappointed ah. "I won't get to see you for that long." Then I stood on my tiptoes and peppered his cheek with kisses. Well, I'd better get in a few more kisses now. Ethan's breath hitched. He grabbed my waist and lifted me onto his desk. "After raising you for so long, I had no idea you were such a master of sweet talk." My legs dangled in the air. I turned my face to the side and offered my cheek. "Well then, Uncle, you should kiss me too." He pinched my chin with 2 fingers and turned my face back towards him. Ethan lowered his head, but just before he could kiss me, the office door was pushed open. "Mr. Wen, it's time for the meeting." It was Ethan's chief secretary in the local office, Jessica. Her eyes were slightly lowered as she spoke calmly. She was the only employee in this company I knew. Mr. Wen had mentioned her name many times, and she was even invited to the Wen family home for holidays. He praised her as the most promising among the students they had sponsored. She had joined Ethan's company right after graduating from college and had risen from a junior position to her current role in just 3 years. The sudden opening of the door made me flinch. The kiss was interrupted. Ethan, with his back to her, showed no reaction. After a moment, he lifted me off the desk. He gently scraped my cheek with his knuckle. I've arranged for someone to look after you. If you need anything, just ask him. If Mr. Wen. Jessica interrupted him again. Please prioritize what's important. I will see to Mississippi Sure's arrangements. The moment she finished speaking, Ethan abruptly swept the pen holder off his desk. A few pens rolled to Jessica's feet. He rarely got angry. Even now, he was leaning back against the desk, watching Jessica with a smile. Are you done? The air froze. Jessica, her lips pale, bent down to pick up the pens one by one. My apologies, Mr. Wen. I was just worried about missing the meeting time. Ethan was toying with a pen in his hand. As Jessica approached to pick up the others, he casually tossed the pen in front of her. He looked down at her, reminding her, "You seem to have forgotten your place." Miss White. That Miss White made her grip the pen so tightly her knuckles turned white. His casual tone carried a mockery only those in the know would understand. I had been at the Wens for Mr. Wen Sr.'s birthday party my sophomore year of high school. Jessica was there too, standing by his side. She wore a perfectly fitted formal dress and looked stunningly beautiful. A friend of Mr. Wen Sr.'s from out of town had jokingly asked, "Is this Ethan and his girlfriend? They match so well in both looks and demeanor. Which conglomerate's daughter is she?" Jessica's smile faltered at the last sentence. Mr. Wen Sr. explained Jessica's background. The friend's gaze towards her became much more speculative. Ethan calling her Miss White now was his way of reminding her of her secretarial status. Jessica remained in a squatting position, her expression hidden. "I understand my mistake, Mr. Wen." Ethan silently squeezed my hand and walked past Jessica out of the office. I stayed in the office by myself, binge-watching a drama on my tablet. I had wanted to tour the different floors and see the company, but I didn't want to bother anyone to show me around. So, I sank into Ethan's massive office chair and watched my show, bored out of my mind. I don't know how much time passed. Ethan didn't come back, but Jessica came in to confront me. She glanced at my tablet screen and let out a bitter laugh. "So, you've been watching this kind of mindless garbage the whole time?" I instantly sat up straight, not quite understanding what she meant by nutritious. I tried to save face. "I occasionally watch educational movies, TV shows, and anime too." Jessica gave a self-deprecating smirk. "When I was 20, the only videos I watched were online courses so I could keep up with Mr. Wen." My eyes widened, unsure of what she was implying. Jessica admitted it bluntly. "I'm in love with Mr. Wen. Isn't it obvious?" Her eyes dimmed. "I know that no matter how hard I try, I'll never be qualified to stand by his side. His wife will undoubtedly be a wealthy socialite who is exceptional in every way. It would never be me." My expression became complicated. Before my sympathy could kick in, Jessica's tone shifted, becoming cold. "But you're not worthy either. As far as I'm concerned, you're no different from a useless child. You are the least qualified person to marry him." I was speechless. Qualified? What qualifications? I mumbled to myself. Do I need a credit check to marry Ethan? If that were the case, I really would be the least qualified. I had already cut ties with my father and his family. When I got engaged to Ethan, I only had 17 left to my name. Jessica's face turned shades of red and white. "What nonsense are you talking?" Footsteps approached. Ethan pushed the door open, his gaze sweeping coolly over Jessica. "Mr. Wen." Ethan walked to the window and cracked it open. He then sat on the sofa, crossing his legs casually. He took out a cigarette and lit it. I blinked, a little surprised. I knew he had a slight smoking habit, but he rarely smoked in front of me. Ethan stared at Jessica, his voice as calm and deliberate as ever. "Go write a letter of resignation, hand it in, and then you can start the handover process." The woman in front of him bit her lower lip until it turned white. "What did I do wrong?" she asked. "Are you really going to let a woman cloud your judgment just to stand up for her?" I rested my arms flat on the desk and put my chin on them. After hearing Jessica out, I turned my eyes to look at Ethan. He stubbed out the half-smoked cigarette between his fingers, neither confirming nor denying her accusation. He just said in a mild tone, "Get out." Jessica knew Ethan well enough. His patience with her had reached its breaking point. If she argued any further, he would probably have someone drag her out. In the 10 seconds that followed, a single tear from Jessica hit the floor. In the silent office, the sound was startlingly clear. "I understand," Jessica said softly, turning to leave. The woman's frame was thin, but her posture was as straight and proud as ever. I sighed quietly to myself, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Jessica was resigning on her own terms. With her skills, she could easily find a job at a company just as good as Wynn Corporation. I went back to editing my digital resume on my phone. Ethan came over to me, leaning one hand on the desk and glancing at my screen. "Planning to find a summer internship?" "MHM." I looked up at him. I don't think what Jessica said was completely wrong. I can improve myself, get some experience. Ethan picked me up and sat in the chair himself, placing me on his lap to listen to my analysis. "I'm too dependent on you. If we ever break up or get divorced, what will I do if I'm this useless?" Ethan slowly raised his eyes. "Little niece, could you repeat what you just said?" His hand on my waist started to creep upwards. Only then did I sense the danger. "No," I pushed his hand away. "I just said if." Ethan looked at me coldly and didn't stop. I couldn't help but let out a whimper. "Uncle, don't." I was wrong, I'll never say it again. The tension in Ethan's brow relaxed. His aura softened once more. He looked down and smoothed out the wrinkles on my hem, his voice a gentle threat. "There won't be a next time." I was still annoyed, so I leaned down and bit his Adam's apple in retaliation. Ethan didn't seem to feel it at all, his hand just rested on the back of my head, stroking my hair. The man must be so old his organs are failing, he can't even feel pain anymore. Ethan said I could get just as much experience interning at Wynn Corporation. I thought about it and nodded in agreement, completely missing the flicker of an unreadable smile on his lips. The next day, I was assigned to work under one of Ethan's female assistants. We looked at each other, and she gave a nervous laugh. "Are you, hungry?" "Huh. I could take you to get something to eat." I tilted my head, a question mark floating above it. "Thanks, but I just had 2 mochi cakes." As I said it, I immediately realized and started rummaging through my backpack. "I think I have one more, do you want it?" No, that's okay," she said, waving her hands frantically, a pained smile on her face. After 3 days on the job, I was already discouraged. Ethan's theory was completely wrong. They only gave me easy, mindless tasks. For example, on the second day, all I did was print 2 documents all day. I didn't learn anything useful and didn't feel involved at all. After a week, I finally couldn't take it anymore. My frustration with Ethan reached its peak. I was even prepared for a week-long Cold War. But his chief assistant mentioned that Ethan had been in back-to-back meetings all day and hadn't even had lunch. I froze for a few seconds. I belatedly realized that when he had come home these past few days, there had been an undeniable exhaustion in his eyes. The Cold War ended before it even began, unilaterally declared over by me. My spineless heart had softened. In the evening, after work, Ethan sent me a text telling me to go home, just like he had the past few days. I scrolled through social media at my desk for nearly an hour, then wandered around the different floors. The entire building was nearly empty of people working overtime. And even they would usually leave by 7:30 p.m. after dinner. But Ethan had been getting home around 10 p.m. these last few days. I went back to the top floor and walked straight into Ethan's office, clutching my bag. The cool blue light from his computer screen reflected off his rimless glasses. When he was focused on work, he exuded an aura of detached coldness. Hearing the noise, he looked up. A gentle warmth bloomed in his eyes. "Why didn't you go home?" I took a small cheesecake square out of my bag, tore open the wrapper, and stuck it in his mouth. I scolded him, clearly displeased. "You haven't eaten all day, aren't you hungry?" I wanted to say, "Don't you know you can ask an assistant to buy you something? Don't you know you'll get stomach problems this way?" But thinking about him still working overtime, I didn't dare disturb him further. I leaned down and kissed his cheek, my voice muffled. "I want to wait for my boyfriend to go home together today. You keep working. I'll just go play on the sofa. Don't worry about me." I turned to walk towards the sofa area. Ethan stood up and pulled me back. He pinned me against the edge of the desk and leaned in. "1 minute," he said in a low voice. A kiss with no preamble stole my breath. Around 9:40 p.m., we were the only 2 people left in the entire building. Ethan was done with his work for the night. But he didn't seem to be in a hurry to go home. He still had his glasses on, the sleeves of his shirt rolled up to his forearms. He strolled leisurely with one hand in his pocket. "Hungry?" I shook my head. "I already ate this afternoon." "You haven't eaten anything, you must be starving. Let's hurry home and eat." Ethan pulled me between his legs. "No rush." I was confused. The back of Ethan's hand brushed against my cheek, then slid down to my collarbone, stroking it lightly, then firmly. It was a very provocative gesture. The rhythm of my breathing instantly fell into disarray. "Uncle." He hummed in response, then suddenly turned my shoulders, making me face the floor-to-ceiling window. I wasn't sure what he meant. Instead of eating, we were going to look at the night view first. It wasn't until Ethan's hand started to get restless that I understood. I trembled all over. "This is the office. And besides, aren't you hungry?" I struggled with all my might but couldn't even budge him. "I am hungry." The man rested his chin on my shoulder and laughed, nibbling lightly on my ear. "So what should I do, little niece?" he asked with feigned innocence. "Are you going to let me eat?" I had recently seen similar lines in a short drama I was watching. Something like, "Tonight, I'm going to eat you all up." But in those dramas, eat referred to a specific activity. Ethan's eat, however, was literally with his mouth. At one point, a security guard came up to do a check. I slapped my hands over my mouth. From outside the door, he called, "Mr. Wan, still working late?" Ethan replied. After dealing with the guard, his heavy gaze locked onto me. "What are you so nervous about? The office is soundproof." Even so, I wasn't convinced. I didn't take my hands down until the very end. The temperature in the office gradually cooled back to normal. My legs were so weak that I felt like I would kneel if I took a single step. Ethan caught my waist in time, lifting me into his arms and carrying me out of the office. I curled up in his embrace, trembling. "Ethan, you're a pervert. I'm breaking up with you." Ethan glanced at the security camera in the elevator and said suddenly, "The elevator would probably be exciting, too." I surrendered, clinging to his shoulder obediently. "Uncle, I was wrong." I tried my old trick, intending to bite his neck to vent my frustration. But when I looked up, I noticed the exhaustion in his eyes had vanished at some point. My open mouth closed again. Ethan had reached the parking garage. He placed me in the passenger seat before asking, "Why didn't you bite?" He seemed intrigued. Afraid of a round 2 in the car? When Ethan was in a relationship, he was like a different person. He even made dirty jokes. I couldn't bring myself to be angry. After holding it in for a long time, all I could manage was an accusation. "You can't just bully me like this because you know I like you and have a soft spot for you. There will be no round 2 today." I frowned seriously and said in a small voice, "The most important thing right now is for you to eat something. Let's go home. I can bake you a cake." Ethan listened to me quietly. After a long moment, a smile spread across his lips. He leaned over, fastening my seatbelt while pecking me lightly on the lips. "Little girl, you should watch what you say in the future, too." I hadn't sworn or said anything dirty. His lips brushed against mine, his voice slightly hoarse. You're always so direct. I can't handle it when you flirt with me like that. Ethan really had no self-control. Clearly, falling in love so late in life came with a whole host of side effects. I spent my 20th birthday at the Wen family home. Both of Ethan's parents hinted that it was time to get our marriage license and have the wedding. But now, Ethan was the one who wasn't in a hurry. Seeing me hesitate for a few seconds, he mistakenly thought I wasn't mentally prepared. He made an excuse for me to fend them off. He said he didn't want to tie me down with marriage so early, that we could just continue dating for now. I didn't answer right away because I wanted to buy a pair of wedding rings with my own money. But I didn't have enough yet. After my 1-week internship at Wen Corporation, I found a new job. In my spare time, I also took on a part-time online tutoring gig. A few days before the end of summer break, I used my salary to buy the pair of wedding rings I had my eye on for 2 months. They didn't have diamonds, but the design was very appealing. The last Sunday before school started was reported to be the peak of the Perseid meteor shower. I dragged Ethan up a mountain to wait with me. Around midnight, the meteor shower began. Ethan leaned back against the car and joked, planning to make a wish? I nodded vigorously twice. I clasped my hands together and closed my eyes devoutly. My only wish right now is... I suddenly spun around to face Ethan. My eyes curved into crescents as I smiled and shouted, for Ethan to accept my marriage proposal. He stood there, staring at me. I took the ring box out of my pocket. My mind suddenly flashed back to the night 2 years ago when I begged him to marry me. After Ethan agreed, he didn't let me go home. He had his assistant call my father to inform him that he would help the Smiths. The condition was that once I married him, I would be his completely. I would have no further ties to the Smiths, and they were not allowed to contact me again. That night, I slept in the guest room next to Ethan's. In the middle of the night, I was startled awake by a nightmare. I dreamed that Mr. Lee had dragged me into a room by force. I sat up, hugging the blanket and crying. Ethan had just finished working in his study and hadn't gone to bed yet. He heard me as he passed by and knocked on my door. I haltingly told him about the dream. "Uncle, I'm so scared. I don't have a father anymore, I'm all alone. He could easily find out what school I go to. And then he'll find me, and harass me." Ethan patiently wiped away my tears. When he ran out of tissues, he just used the end of his tie. "Chloe, what you're afraid of will never happen. You're not alone. Ethan will always have your back. When I agreed to marry you, it wasn't just a temporary measure to deal with your father." His gentle voice gradually calmed me down. "I'm taking on your entire life, so you can do whatever you want." Ethan smiled, his thumb gently stroking my swollen eyes. "When you were a child, I took care of you for 5 years. For those 5 years, I raised you like a princess. How could I possibly let you suffer now? The first time I proposed, it was a desperate cry for help. This was the second time. Because I was too embarrassed to come empty-handed again, I saved up to buy a pair of wedding rings. Above us, the sky was blanketed with meteors, symbols of hope and expectation. Ethan seemed to have finally regained the ability to move. He walked closer, his eyes on the ring box, his expression unreadable. He asked, "Are you sure? Chloe, you're only 20. Aren't you afraid that in the future, if..." "I'm not afraid." Ethan, in his proud way, was slow to hold out his hand. I just took it, removed his engagement ring, and replaced it with the wedding band. I said slowly, "I don't have any pre-wedding jitters, and I don't see marriage as a constraint. It's only because the person I'm marrying is you." I admired the man's long, well-defined fingers. The ring made even a simple band look exquisite on his hand. A smile spread across Ethan's lips as he examined the ring. "What's this? Are you proposing to me?" I placed the other ring in his palm. "Yes, I am. Please say yes." Ethan's eyes sparkled with laughter. He slipped the ring onto my ring finger. His voice was softer than I had ever heard it. Yes, I agree to marry you. I was gathered into Ethan's arms as we continued to watch the meteors. A moment later, a meteor streaked across the sky above us. Before disappearing into the nebula, it flashed with a brilliant, dazzling light. It was as if it was saying to me, "See? I made your wish come true."